Welcome to the F5 Application Security Manager Web Application Firewall Demo Series. In this demo we'll show how to use parent and child security policies with F5 Big IP ASM. This is demo 24 of the ASM demo series.